Let's start at the beginning. Prehistoric and early societies to 3000 BCE. Early humans had no money, but had wealth in communal resource sharing, kinship, and access to food and shelter. Value was social, not financial. Sharing ensured survival, and status came from cooperation. As agrarian surplus developed, people accumulated more than needed, planting the seeds of trade and inequality. In ancient and classical societies, 3000 BCE to 500 CE, society shifted to centralized systems. Monetary systems emerged, private enterprise grew, and state economies rose. Wealth became countable and transferable, but was still shaped by social capital, religion, and power. Today, wealth creation is influenced by blockchain, AI, and the digital economy, but underlying patterns remain. Society, technology, and values continuously reshape wealth. Drawing from economics, sociology, anthropology, and political science, this video shows the full story. Now you see how wealth evolved from shared survival to strategic accumulation and continues changing with innovation. If this changed how you think about money and value, hit subscribe. How early humans built the foundations of wealth, power, and inequality. What if the roots of inequality started the moment we learned to store grain? Imagine living in a world where everything was shared: food, tools, shelter. In prehistoric times, that was reality. Hunter-gatherers moved together, survived together, and no one hoarded more than they could carry. Life was communal, and wealth, as we understand it today, didn't exist. But everything changed when the first seeds were planted, literally. As early agrarian communities discovered how to grow and store surplus food, particularly grains, something profound happened. Storage meant power. Whoever controlled the granaries began to control the people. This marked the beginning of social stratification. You can trace today's economic hierarchies all the way back to those ancient silos. Now, zoom in on these early settlements. Surplus food didn't just feed the community, it fueled innovation. With not everyone needing to hunt or farm, some individuals began to specialize in new skills. This specialization opened the door to trade. People exchanged tools, food, and raw materials through early bartering systems and gift economies. These exchanges weren't just about goods, they were about relationships, influence, and reputation. In Mesopotamia, by the 4th millennium BCE, trade had become so central that people literally had to invent a way to keep track of it. That's where cuneiform writing came in, born not from poetry, but from receipts and trade logs. That's how powerful the concept of exchange had become. And with power came hierarchy. The same surpluses that allowed innovation and trade also introduced economic inequality. Those who managed or owned these reserves, early elites, began to rise above the rest. They weren't just food keepers, they became rulers. The earliest cities like Jericho and Uruk didn't just pop up. They emerged from these layers of control, trade, and surplus management. It's the story of how managing shared resources evolved into controlling value itself. And that's where civilization began, not with temples or technology, but with who held the keys to the grain. How ancient civilizations shaped the foundations of wealth and economic thought. What if everything we know about money and wealth started thousands of years ago in ancient civilizations? Back then, wealth wasn't just precious metals, it was staple crops like wheat and rice, carefully stored in massive granaries that supported entire empires. This early form of centralized economic planning was a huge leap from simple barter to organized resource management. Around the 7th century BCE, coinage emerged simultaneously in Lydia and China, standardizing value and enabling sophisticated trade that connected regional markets. This innovation laid the foundation for economic ideas that shaped history. Greek and Roman thinkers like Aristotle introduced critical distinctions, such as between use value and exchange value, that became pillars of economic theory. The Romans further developed legal frameworks around property, trade, and credit, creating early corporate structures essential for wealth accumulation. Beyond money and trade, philosophers including Aristotle and Ibn Khaldun recognized labor's role in generating surplus value, foreshadowing modern economic theories linking effort to wealth creation. These ancient systems were far from primitive. They invented principles that still govern economies today. Understanding their legacy helps us see how money and markets evolved from the ideas and efforts of early civilizations. If this intrigued you, subscribe now. Next, we'll uncover how medieval trade expanded these foundations toward the modern economy. The evolution of wealth from feudal lords to global empires and indigenous traditions. What if everything you thought about wealth wasn't quite true? For centuries, wealth wasn't about flashy money, it was about land, power, and social bonds. In medieval Europe, status and fortune depended on land ownership. Under feudalism, lords controlled estates, worked by peasants who paid rents and services. Land wasn't just property, it was political power shaping localized economies. Fast forward to the mercantilist era, where wealth shifted from soil to ships and colonies. European nations raced to amass gold and silver, pushing policies that boosted exports and restricted imports. Colonies supplied raw materials like sugar and cotton, fueling industries back home. Governments created monopolies and tariffs to keep wealth flowing inward. Meanwhile, many indigenous societies valued wealth through relationships and rituals like the potlatch and kula ring. Their gift economies emphasized generosity and social bonds over accumulating goods, offering a sharp contrast to Europe's market-driven wealth. From feudal estates to mercantile empires and indigenous exchanges, wealth has always been about more than money. It's about how societies value power, relationships, and resources. This history reshapes how we understand wealth today. If you want to dive deeper, stay tuned for the next video exploring how these systems shaped the modern economy. If this changed your perspective, hit subscribe. The rise of market liberalism and the clash of economic ideas, a story of enlightenment and change. What if the economy wasn't just about money changing hands, but an invisible force driving societies toward prosperity or conflict? I'm here to guide you through a transformative chapter in economic history, where Enlightenment ideas reshaped how we understand wealth, labor, and fairness. If you've ever wondered why markets behave as they do, or why economists still debate capitalism's effects, this story will save you years of confusion. In the 18th century, Adam Smith introduced the invisible hand, the idea that individuals pursuing their own self-interest can drive overall prosperity. He showed that specialization, like workers each performing a simple task in a pen factory, dramatically boosts productivity and wealth. Capital accumulation became the engine powering this growth, fundamentally changing how economies create value. Building on this, David Ricardo revealed how countries benefit by focusing on what they do best, comparative advantage. His labor theory of value explained why specialization and trade maximize global wealth. Around the same time, John Stuart Mill added an ethical dimension, arguing policies should aim for the greatest happiness for the greatest number. But not everyone agreed. In the 19th century, Karl Marx criticized capitalism, arguing that workers earned barely enough to survive while capitalists extracted surplus value. His analysis of class conflict challenged classical economics and still influences debates today. Philosophers like Hegel deepen this discourse by exploring how economic systems evolve historically, blending philosophy and economics. From the invisible hand to critiques of capitalist accumulation, this era shaped how we view markets as human stories of cooperation, conflict, and change. If this journey intrigued you, hit subscribe to explore how these ideas sparked revolutions and shaped modern economies. Meanwhile, watch this next video to see how these theories changed history forever. How the Industrial Age and the 20th century revolutionized wealth creation. What if everything you thought about wealth creation changed between 1870 and 2000? Before steam engines and mechanized textiles, economies were slow and local. Then came mechanization, which revolutionized production, creating mass output and a new middle class. The second industrial revolution accelerated this with electricity and combustion engines, reshaping labor and economic value. But the Industrial Age wasn't just about machines. The Great Depression forced economists like John Maynard Keynes to argue for government spending to stabilize economies during downturns. Later, Milton Friedman and monetarists promoted free markets and monetary control, sparking a debate about the right balance between government and markets in driving growth. By the late 20th century, globalization connected the world's economies like never before. Advances in communication and transportation allowed multinational companies to create complex supply chains. This integration shifted wealth creation beyond national borders, showing that old economic measures were no longer enough to capture the full picture. From steam engines to global networks, the Industrial Age and 20th century rewrote how wealth is made and shared. This history helps us understand today's complex economy and how innovation, policy, and global integration shape it. If this found insightful, subscribe for next week's dive into how digital technology is transforming wealth creation. And check out the linked video. It's the missing link between the industrial past and our digital future. How different global economies shape wealth creation, a journey through models. What if everything you thought about wealth creation depended on the economic system you live in? Imagine your prosperity hinges not just on hard work, but on the structure of the economy around you. I'm here to walk you through global models of wealth development and why understanding them can change how you see money, innovation, and fairness. First, capitalist economies like the USA or Western Europe rely on private ownership. Profit drives innovation and competition, fueling growth but creating income gaps. It's an ever-turning wheel where new companies replace old ones, a process called creative destruction. This drives high wealth generation, though unevenly distributed. On the other hand, socialist and mixed economies like those in Nordic countries feature government or collective control, with central planning aimed at fairer wealth distribution. These systems balance market efficiency with social safety nets, reducing inequality but sometimes slowing innovation. Historically, wealth wasn't just money or land. It included social ties and ceremonial exchanges. Feudal societies built wealth on agricultural hierarchies, while indigenous communities used ceremonies like potlatch to redistribute social capital. These examples show wealth is also cultural and relational. Finally, informal and sustainable economies are vital today. In many developing regions, barter, street vending, and local trade operate outside formal markets. Emerging models like the circular economy prioritize sustainability and resource efficiency, redefining wealth as natural capital that supports future generations. Whether capitalistic innovation, socialist fairness, historical tradition, or ecological balance, wealth creation takes many forms, each revealing different meanings of prosperity. If this shifts how you see the global economy, hit subscribe for more deep dives. Next time, we'll explore how these models impact everyday lives in surprising ways. Don't miss it. The future of wealth. How modern trends are redefining prosperity. What if everything you thought you knew about wealth was about to change? Welcome to the digital age, where money isn't just cash or property anymore. It's data, platforms, and technology reshaping the very idea of value. From digital platforms that turn startups into giants like Alibaba and Tencent, to blockchain disrupting traditional banking with cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance, the landscape of wealth is evolving rapidly. AI and automation are powerful engines driving productivity and redefining intellectual capital, while raising urgent questions about jobs and fairness. Meanwhile, new economic models prioritize sustainability, valuing our planet's health along financial growth, pushing us toward a circular economy where waste is minimized. Beneath it all, policy innovations are tackling inequality through ideas like wealth taxes and universal basic income, striving for prosperity that benefits everyone. Understanding these forces means you'll not only survive, but thrive in the new economy unfolding right now. The complex story of wealth, more than just economics. What if everything you thought about wealth was missing the bigger picture? Wealth creation isn't just about money and markets. It's shaped by history, culture, psychology, and power. Hi, I'm Chad. If you've ever wondered why economic systems feel complex or why measuring wealth seems incomplete, this video is for you. From Aristotle and Adam Smith laying early foundations to Karl Marx revealing class struggles and power dynamics, wealth is as much a social story as a numbers game. Wealth isn't only material. It reflects cultural values and social bonds. Max Weber linked work ethics to religious beliefs, showing how societies value labor differently. Anthropological studies of gift economies highlight how reputation and connection can define wealth. These views reveal the economy as a living system shaped by history and social norms. Measuring wealth has evolved from ancient grain stores to GDP and the Human Development Index. Critics like Partha Dasgupta argue these metrics overlook inequality and environmental harm. Behavioral economics further complicates this by showing people don't always act rationally, challenging traditional market models. Wealth is still a complex, evolving concept, needing new ways to measure value. By seeing wealth through these varied lenses, from economics to culture and behavior, you'll understand it as a multifaceted phenomenon. This changes how we think about value beyond numbers. If this new perspective resonates, subscribe and join me next time to explore how these ideas shape real-world policies. The ever-evolving story of wealth from ancient roots to a sustainable future. What if wealth isn't just about money, but about how humanity has transformed living, trade, and prosperity over time? Long before coins or markets, prehistoric societies shared resources communally. As agriculture and trade emerged, early barter and monetary systems laid the foundation for wealth. Ancient civilizations created legal and monetary institutions, while medieval feudal and mercantilist economies added complexity. The Enlightenment sparked revolutionary economic theories, leading to the Industrial Age and today's digital, socially conscious economy. Wealth creation has always been shaped by more than technology alone, from farming tools to writing, coinage, factories, and digital platforms. Innovations unfold within specific cultural and institutional contexts. Competitive markets drive growth but also inequality, prompting new approaches to redistribution and welfare. This dynamic interplay between technology, institutions, and culture underpins centuries of economic evolution. Looking ahead, wealth's future depends on more than output. Digital advances, blockchain, and AI promise productivity, but risk job loss, bubbles, and environmental harm without smart policies. Integrating natural capital accounting with traditional metrics is key. Inclusive policies like wealth taxes, stakeholder capitalism, and universal basic income reflect a shift toward prosperity balanced with fairness and sustainability. Wealth is evolving from accumulation to creating broad social and environmental value. If you've wondered how wealth evolved and what's next, this story reveals the forces shaping economies and the path to inclusive, sustainable prosperity. The story of wealth, from prehistoric sharing to tomorrow's digital economies. What if the way we think about wealth is changing faster than we realize? Imagine a journey that starts with prehistoric communities sharing resources to survive, moves through the rise of cities fueled by early farming surpluses, and unfolds into complex societies wrestling with capitalism's promises and pitfalls. I'm here to guide you through this evolution, because understanding how wealth was created across history isn't just economics, it's a story about who we are and what we value. We'll explore how each era, from ancient civilizations around 30,000 BCE through the medieval and early modern ages to the industrial and digital revolutions, shaped new ways of generating and measuring economic value. Today's challenges, like growing inequality and environmental crises, are part of a larger pattern that forces us to rethink what economic success means. This isn't just about resources, it's how technology, culture, and institutions define our future. As we connect the dots from prehistoric sharing to AI-driven economies, you'll see why wealth must align with fairness and sustainability. These insights prepare us for economic transformations where policy and innovation must work together to improve human well-being. If you've ever wondered how history shapes your financial reality, this story will open your eyes to the deep social roots of economic value and why that matters more than ever.